Well, we're here at NDIA again, talking with Chris Gunderson about the Bending the Cost Curve PlugFest Plus. And Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your involvement here?
Well, I'm a Naval Postgraduate School research scientist, and I'm sponsored by Secretary of Defense based on my career in the military. My job is to help the government figure out fundamental different approaches appropriate for acquiring information systems based on open approaches.
Okay, well, great. Well, we've talked a little bit, and you've talked about something that you call the knowing-doing gap. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, the knowing-doing gap, it's one of these industrial buzz phrases, and it's a truism that, companies need to evolve, and if you don't, you continue to do the same thing that's driving you out of the market share that you need to have, eventually you're going to become extinct. And even though you need to fundamentally change, you continue to empty your inbox and you don't find the time and the effort or the will to take on the new challenges.
It's being caught in the grind daily. And
yeah.
So how does that, I mean, that sounds like the Einsteinian, if you do what you've always done, right?
Exactly.
Is that kind of where you're headed with that?
That's exactly where I'm heading with that. So a couple of truths, things that everybody know. First of all, Einstein was right. He says that if you try to solve the problem that you're in with the same thinking and processes that got you there, you're crazy. So the knowing-doing gap is we know we need to find some fundamental different approaches. Question is, what are those? Well, we know two other truisms based on industrial best practice. You get what you measure. Leadership focuses on the dashboard associated with the things that they care about, and you get the things that the boss cares about. The other thing is, you do get what you pay for. If you don't, people go to jail. In the defense acquisition world, people aren't going to jail, but we're not getting what we want. Ergo, we're not measuring the right things, and/or we're not paying for the right things.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about this get what you measure, the idea about, I mean, we're all familiar with incentivization, and, if you're being measured to do certain things a certain way, you do them that way, right?
Yeah.
If you're being rewarded along those lines. So.
Yeah, so the question is, if we want to fundamentally measure different things, what should they be? Well, we say we want to get better capability out on the street faster and cheaper, so we need to do that. We need to figure out how to objectively define the operational outcomes we're trying to achieve and define those in measurable ways. Then we have to couple that to a particular cost. It's capability per cost. If you think you're going to save money with any sort of a project, it doesn't happen in the world. So the objective is to get more capability, measurable capability, against some baseline at the same cost, and you need to get it out quickly. So you need to basically divide by the amount of time it takes you to get that out the door. That gives you the right metric. And so if we're going to fundamentally take that approach, we have to come up with some way to measure interoperability. And I say both from an engineering perspective, how long does it take you to take an object, an application, a piece of technology, and configure it in your environment? That's a measure of engineering interoperability. You also have to measure operational interoperability. It's not just exchanging data, but it's making it effective.
Kind of a more scientific approach to interoperability.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, from an engineering perspective, if you can't measure it and you can't test it, you can't have it. So we need to come up with a way to measure it and test it, and then we have to use that test, and we call that a plug test, an interoperability test. You plug it in, and if it operates correctly, it's good. And we're saying, so use that as the basis for determining whether this or that offering is better.
So this plug testing concept is being used a lot in commercial electronics to, buy down risk before taking components to market. You see the similar analogy here?
Absolutely. In fact, the App Store metaphor is exactly what we're talking about. You have an app, you want to bring it to market. You come to an app store if you're a developer. Before you demonstrate that your application can configure in the market environment, you have to agree to a certain security model, a certain intellectual property rights model, a certain business model. Then when your application works, it's deployed, you get paid, and the system grows.
So comment just a moment on that security model and the influence of IA and all the things that we have to be concerned about today.
Well, we have these concepts about clouds and service architectures, and the idea is you could build this interoperable, pluggable infrastructure, and you could continuously evolve new applications and just plug them in. But if your security model is based on physical separation between these entities, that can't happen. And so in order to achieve this vision, we need to come up with an approach to security that is likewise virtual and based on logical separation as opposed to physical separation.
So this is all about getting what you measure.
Exactly, and measure security in terms of the need to know, the need to protect information, but also the need to share it. And if you can't do both of those things and you can't measure it, you don't know whether or not the security that you've invested in was worth the investment.